game every time, and it's just like
First
Skyrim,
person
and it makes you
Veilguard?
wonder why they don't do a Skyrim 2, which is coming to the Nintendo Switch 2 on day 1 confirmed. Did a February 21st pirate Yakuza in Hawaii. In this game, you play as a Japanese gangster who becomes a pirate captain that can create clones of himself, and then he sails to Hawaii and teams up with a giant boxing monkey. It does have sword fighting, but I feel like it has too much stuff that isn't sword fighting for this game to be successful next year. February 28th.
I'm gonna 100% play that. Absolutely, that's amazing.
Of course we're gonna have to play Monster Hunter Wilds. This is a very innovative game where you can choose to be a woman or a man and then hit monsters with a sword. I don't think they've done sword fighting in a game for a while, so it's gonna keep things pretty fresh like Skyrim. In March, we're definitely playing South of Midnight, where you play as a woman, you're hitting monsters with a sword. It's exactly the right kind of game. Then Switch 2 hit shelves, boom, we get Witcher 4.
I feel like South of Midnight is gonna be I think that people have already decided, since it's a black woman that's like the main character, that it's a DEI bullshit game. And so I kind of feel bad for the devs, because like everybody's already like kind of against it. But I'm gonna try the game out. I'm gonna play it. It's gonna suck, right? Yeah, exactly, right? Everybody, see, this is the thing, right? And people not even gonna give it a fair shot.
A woman hitting witches with a sword, but you gotta use the golden sword for aquatic.
It's already over. Yeah, bro.
They're boarding it. I love it. We're hitting with a sword. Ninjas are involved.
That's
the guy from Onimusha 3 is involved.
All right.
Ghost of Yoti looks phenomenal. We're doing ninjas for a change and hitting with a sword, kind of like Skyrim. Then I'm gonna play Skyrim for the first time. I've never played it yet. I've heard great things. To me, it sounds a lot like Skyrim. Then Fable is coming out. You're the woman from Fable 3 with a sword, hitting people with it. It's what we love to see.
And with the perfect moment to infuse it with lightning and create shockwaves.
Man, there's a lot of these, huh?
Hold down the button for Gathering Storm to build up power before dashing.
We got Black Myth Wu Chang, Fallen Feathers from the butt of a swan. It's a woman-based game with swords like
No, it's not. No, you don't have to play as a girl. You play as a guy in this game too. I checked. No, it's saved. It's okay.
Got that ninja flavor into it that we love to see. Phantom Blade Zero. You are
we're okay, guys.
Ninja hitting people with a sword. Project the Perceiver. Now this looks really interesting. You play as a woman ninja with a sword. You're hitting people with the damn thing. It's such an original premise. Where winds meet, you're a man ninja. And you're hitting people with a sword like Onimusha. And then I'm thinking we're gonna close out this year strong with Intergalactic. This is the new game from Naughty Dog, which is one of the best studios. We're talking Crash Bandicoot, Jak and Daxter, Uncharted, Last
20 years ago.
Every time Naughty Dog steps up to the plate, they hit a home run. But for some reason, I started getting this bad feeling when I was watching this trailer.
Yeah.
You know, we have a woman character, okay, probably a ninja. But why are we in a spaceship talking to people like Starfield? And I started thinking, I don't know, man. Maybe gamers were...
That is scary. It is like Starfield. That's really scary. Yeah.
Right. Maybe Naughty Dog is losing that magic touch.
Well, they have a sword.
But then she pulls out a big-ass Skyrim sword and...
No swords equals bad. Well, to be fair, that one does have a sword, so it's okay. You're safe. Yeah, this video was funny. I liked it. I mean, I think there's a few other games that's coming out. There's like maybe 2 that he didn't mention. But yeah, a lot of games with ladies with swords. I think there's like, again, I like sword games. Sword games are great. Yeah, Baldwin Soda. Yeah, there you go. And 2025 Game of the Year. I don't know which sword game it's going to be. I actually think it's going to be the gun game, which is going to be Grand Theft Auto. I think that's going to be the game that ends up being Game of the Year. But we'll see what happens, right? But if it doesn't get delayed, I think there's a good chance GTA gets delayed. Why do I think that? I just made it up. But that's the reason why I think it's going to happen. So yeah, I can't play with a sword. No, you could probably have a sword in GTA. Yeah, I bet you can. I'll link you guys the video. This was funny. Let me see what this is. because they just want to make more and more products to
Falling
make more and more
thunder
money.
is a lightning area
That's the reason.
attack.
It's that simple. And you're seeing a lot of Western companies do this primarily.
So let's talk about the rise and fall of Ubisoft. As of recording this video, Ubisoft stock just hit a low that they haven't seen in over a decade. Their stock prices
The funny thing is
fell
now it's even lower. Like, let me see if I can I find it? No, it's not on here anymore. Yeah, it's like this was from like a week ago or a few days ago. So like now it's even worse than it was in this video.
almost 84% over the past few years, and with recent releases like
High,
Skull
low,
and Bones,
sell lower.
Assassin's Creed Mirage,
Yeah.
X Defiant, Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, Star Wars Outlaws, and the upcoming Assassin's Creed Black Shadows, nothing seems to be able to pull them out of this death spiral, no matter how many games they release in quick succession.
Well, think about how many games he just listed off. Like, that was like 7 games or something like that. Of course they're, like, I mean, it's just you're spread so thin. What do you expect?
When a company releases 6 games over the course of a couple of years, that's usually the sign of success.
yeah.
But in the case of Ubisoft, each release seems to be taking them one step closer towards the brink of collapse.
I don't think that's an example of success at all. The only games that bring out 6 games the only companies that bring out 6 games in a year are mobile game slot companies. Nobody's bringing out 6 games in a year. Who the fuck does that? Yeah, there's no way.
So how did this happen? Why did this happen? How does a cornerstone of the AAA industry
Capcom? I
fall
don't think
this
even
far
Capcom
from
does.
grace?
And if they do, it's a
to answer
remaster.
that, we need to go back and look to where Ubisoft came from, where it peaked, and where it fell. Ubisoft, like many developers, cut
The
their
original
teeth on
Prince of
PC
Persia.
games in the late 80s. A game company initially started by the 5 Guillemot brothers, who still own and operate the company today, initially focused on games distribution as they slowly moved into games development. Titles like Zombie, Prince of Persia, and a few others helped them to gain a foothold, but it wasn't until 1995 that the company would make a name for itself. Rayman exploded onto the scene, a game using interactive and creative puzzle and platforming
this is
mechanics
from back in the
we hadn't
day.
even seen before. It sold over 400,000 units by the end of the year, becoming the most popular game in Europe and cementing itself in gaming history. Following their success came rapid expansion. By the year 2000, Ubisoft saw exponential growth on their publishing side with major victories on the Dreamcast, with titles like Grandia 2, my favorite JRPG of all time, Tokyo.
I feel like the Dreamcast was like fucking like, who the fuck? Did any of you guys have a Dreamcast? Because like, am I the only one that like, my mom wouldn't buy me one because of how expensive it was? Dreamcast was like crazy overpriced.
Extreme Racer, F1 Racing Championship, and Taxi 2. However, it was on the PlayStation 2 that Ubisoft would find its identity. While they were still publishing great games like FromSoft's Armored Core 2 and Eternal Ring and Snowblind Studios' Champions of Norath, it was during this time that Ubisoft acquired the license to use Tom Clancy's stories and name in a series of games, with Tom Clancy's Ghost Recon and later Splinter Cell taking the stage. After this, Ubisoft went on a blitz with original titles, quickly rolling out sequel after sequel. Splinter Cell kicked it off in 2003 with Pandora Tomorrow in 2004, Chaos Theory in 2005, Double Agent in 2006.
Yeah, like I remember these games. You guys, like, these games were like as big as COD. Like Splinter Cell was massive. What's weird is like I never even really liked Splinter Cell that much because it was a stealth game. I like, you know, shooting games like Halo and stuff like that. But yeah, they were massive.
Recon launched in 2002. It had a sequel in 2004, a next version of it with Advanced Warfighter in 2006, Advanced Warfighter 2 in 2007, Prince of Persia: The Sands of Time came out in 2003, and yep, just like the others, it saw rapid follow-ups with Warrior Within in 2004 and Two Thrones in 2005.
It was crazy to see like some of those old games that have better gameplay than what we have now. It's actually nuts. I don't know how that happens.
On the mid-2000s, Ubisoft must have realized that this rapid pace was not sustainable, and it started to affect the quality of their games. Later releases took longer. The next Prince of Persia game didn't appear until 2008, and it took 4 years to develop the next Far Cry game from the original that came out in 2004. Despite this intense schedule, Ubisoft was holding its own against rivals in Activision with its military shooters and competing against Konami's Metal Gear Solid through Splinter Cell.
Why did they stop making military games? Do they still make military games? I feel like they don't as much, right? Because of COD? Do they make COD? I don't think that Ubisoft makes Call of Duty. Activision makes Call of Duty. It's too controversial. They make, yeah, I guess they make Rainbow Six. Yeah, okay, all right, they still have that. Isn't that the game that they're adding in a person in a wheelchair? They're adding in a person in a wheelchair to Rainbow Six? I'll be right back. This shit ain't the military anymore? Yeah, because it's like, you know, if you go in the military, like, it's just...
So, we
like, it's so stupid. Like, how do you even do that? I'll be right back.
Regardless of their success in publishing, developing licensed IPs, and military shooters, it was the release of Assassin's Creed in 2007 that sent Ubisoft into orbit. And it
Yeah,
bridged the
this
gap-
game, like, this game was the fucking, like... I remember I never played the original one, but I would see it all the time. Like, if you go to GameStop or something like that back in the day, it was everywhere.
Why has the caravan...
Fine, I can play myself as Rainbow Six. What? Yeah, exactly. But, like, yeah, I mean, this is... I feel like Assassin's Creed is probably the one that Ubisoft is known the most for right now, I would say.
With a title that appealed to audiences worldwide. There was nothing like it in the market at the time. This game was an enigma. It was far and away the best looking game on consoles. Its fluid movement, parkour, and combat felt alien. Its setting of reliving our ancestors' memories while we chase a relic to try to stop the shadow government Templars was fresh and original. Assassin's Creed defined modern gaming at the time, and it made Ubisoft a household name. Ubisoft was everywhere at this time. You'd be hard-pressed not to turn on your console or turn on your PC and see that logo pop up. And it wasn't just the games that they were making, it was the games that they were publishing. They had such a good eye for talent, such a good eye for great games. And as a result, they made a ton of money. I mean, they published Morrowind. I didn't even know that. I was going through some of the history of all the different games that they had published over the years.
Yeah, I
and
didn't know that
back
either.
going like, man, these guys are raking at the time. But it wasn't just those games as well. It was also the successes that they were seeing with the games that they were making. They had such a fresh and...
How do you do that? Like, that's crazy for me to think of, because, like, they published Devil May Cry 3 too? What the fuck happened? That's crazy. Like, how? I don't even understand. Like, that's unbelievable.
High quality outlook on all the games that they were creating. They were really leaning into presentation more than anything else. They wanted to make sure that their games just looked the best, hands down, bar none, no competition. And they pulled it off. Advanced Warfighter 1 and 2 are some of my favorite shooters of all time, even kind of more than some of the Call of Duty games at the time. They're likely the games that ended up inspiring Call of Duty Modern Warfare 1 and 2. If you look at Splinter Cell and Metal Gear Solid, they leaned really hard into the stealth aspects, the spy aspects of those kind of games, and as a result, they found their own following and gave a really unique experience that you weren't getting from the Metal Gear Solid games.
Right.
While the narrative wasn't nearly as strong, it was still pretty good, but the gameplay was completely different. Then you bring out Assassin's Creed, and that just took the quality to a completely different level. At this point, with Ubisoft, if you're buying one of their games, 9 times out of 10, you were going to have your socks knocked off. They were incredible experiences, and Ubisoft knew that. They capitalized on it, and they profited. Following the release of Assassin's Creed...
It's crazy to see how popular they used to be. Like, I feel like I really kind of downplayed how big Ubisoft was. I didn't understand how many other games they also published. That's incredible. Like, yeah, old games were good, yeah.
2007, Ubisoft entered into a golden era that solidified their place as one of the leaders in the AAA industry. The success of Assassin's Creed was not just a one-off hit, it became a flagship franchise that grew in scope and ambition with each installment. Assassin's Creed 2 in 2009 expanded upon the original's foundations with deeper gameplay mechanics.
And it's also like in 2009, okay, this isn't a very good image. But like if you look at the gameplay here, 2009, that's really good graphics. I think this is another component that people might forget, is that, like, I know that, like, for Black Flag and a few other games that Ubisoft did, like, their graphics for the time were, like, next level. They were really good.
Deeper gameplay mechanics, and more engaging narrative, and a charismatic protagonist in Ezio Auditore. Still the best protagonist in all of Assassin's Creed. The game was a commercial and critical success, selling over 9 million copies and becoming one of the most celebrated entries in the entire series. The success continued with Assassin's Creed Brotherhood in 2010 and Assassin's Creed Revelations in 2011. In combination with this, Ubisoft was experiencing major successes with their Far Cry series. Far Cry 3 in 2012 was a groundbreaking title that redefined open world gaming. It introduced vast explorable islands filled with diverse environments and a gripping story and one of the most memorable protagonists in all of gaming history. And I think that character shows just how far Ubisoft today has fallen from where they came from. No shot Ubisoft ever makes a villain like this again.
I'm sorry, what did you say? What did you say? Did you want me to bust you open like I did your friend? Shut the fuck up! Okay? I'm the one with the fucking dick. Look at me. Look me in the fucking eyes. Hey! You fuck! Look me in the eyes! You're my bitch. I rule this fucking kingdom.
Far Cry 3 sold over...
Man. So they actually just pussified their games. That's what I think it is. They pussified the games. That's what it was. Yeah, because like I watched this. Yeah. That's it. That's a good. Yeah. GOAT villain of all time. Because like I compare this dialogue to the dialogue in Star Wars Outlaw. You know?
For 10 million
Ubisoft
copies
used to be
and was lauded
edgy.
as one of the best games of the generation, setting a new benchmark for open world shooters. The series continued to thrive with Far Cry 4 in 2014 and Far Cry 5 in 2018, each expanding on the franchise's formula with new mechanics and narratives. By 2018, Far Cry 5 became the fastest selling title in Ubisoft's history, moving over 5 million copies within the first week, solidifying the franchise's place in history. In parallel with the success that they had going on with the Far Cry series, Tom Clancy's Rainbow Six...
I feel like what really is poison for a lot of games is that when the game has like limits that it won't go to. And I think that's what happens with a lot of companies is that like there's like an edge that the company has or the games have that then they kind of get afraid of. They're like, now we're afraid of this edge. And I feel like it was so crazy for me to play Cyberpunk 2077 and then to have right before that played Starfield. Like it was like two completely different experiences, right? And I feel like that's what's happened with a lot of these game companies is that I don't even really know why, but so many of their games are just flaccid. They're just flat, like they're just like there's no like I don't know, like I'm trying to think even like what the word. They're soft, yeah, like they're soft, like everything is yeah, it's just I'm just trying to think like the best way to say it. Character soul, yeah, it's just weak. Like yeah, the characters don't have any edge, they don't have any grit to them, they're not interesting. I don't know, they're one-dimensional. Yeah, they're politically correct for sure. I think that's a huge problem. Yeah, like I feel like, you know what a good example of this is? Like what game like really was a great example is the like Baldur's Gate 3 with like the bear sex scene, and then also the Coffin of Andy and Laylee. And I think that the reason why those games like got so much attention is because like completely different levels, by the way, obviously, but like the reason why they got a lot of attention is that if it's a game where you can kill and eat your parents, you can, like, you know that you are experiencing something that's not being artificially handicapped in terms of its narrative direction because the person that's writing it is afraid of offending the wrong person on Twitter. And I think that that's really where the weakness comes in. That's where the problem is. It's that people are self-censoring narratives and making them less complex and less interesting because that complexity and that interest makes certain people on the internet that are really outspoken like really upset and uncomfortable. Games have weak characters, mostly just agenda vehicles. Well, I feel like the problem is that whenever, and this is kind of like the issue, is that whenever you see, like, or like you perceive, I think this is also very important, whenever you perceive a agenda or like a certain reason that's political or social of why something is the way it is in a game, I think that the amount of escapism that you can have in that game goes down massively. Because now you are no longer playing a fantasy world. you are doing something that is in the context of like a real life. There's no agenda. Yeah, it's immersion breaking. It's very immersion breaking.
Siege initially launched to a modest reception, but through consistent updates and community engagement, it has now grown into one of the most popular and enduring multiplayer shooters, even still today. By 2018, Rainbow Six Siege had amassed over 30 million players.
Thank you, Jinxie.
Tom Clancy's The Division in 2016 was another major hit, offering a compelling blend of third-person shooting and RPG mechanics set in a post-apocalyptic New York. It was Ubisoft's fastest-selling new IP at launch, earning $330 million in sales within the first week. It showcased Ubisoft's ability to successfully launch a new IP while still being able to maintain their existing franchises. If we take a snapshot of the successes from 2000 to 2018, we see
I had no idea they had this crazy of a run. Really, like, I actually had no idea about this. This is nuts.
Ubisoft that was consistently delivering on high-quality experiences while innovating within existing franchises, creating new franchises, doing all kinds of things. But at the exact same time, we also see a foreboding trend. The minute that they see a game become successful, they hammer that nail again and again and again. Sometimes within such quick succession that we're seeing sequels with games within year to year to year to year, back to back to back to back, and then they stop. And that's going to take a toll, not only on the developers, but also on the audiences.
Well, and it's also like another component of this is that as video games have become more expensive and people have become more conscious of the money they're spending, I think that you see a lot less people that are willing to spend a lot of money on games. Because, like, again, whenever you were playing games and you were getting maybe like, you know, you get a new game for $50 and it's like every once in a while you buy one of those, it's okay. But now I feel like people are much more money conscious because of how many different things are asking for your money. So it's obvious that we're grown. Yeah, exactly. Ubisoft got to a point where they had nothing to say. Well, I feel like the problem really is that I think their biggest weakness, I'm going to be totally honest, is the fact that they're making so many products. I think that the issue is that they're spread too thin and they're focused on too many different things at the same time. But that's the biggest issue.
By 2018, Ubisoft was worth $24 a share. It's the highest price. It's still the highest price that they've ever been worth. And
keep in mind that the $24 a share is contextual around the company being only 1/5 in the American stock exchange. The other 4/5 are in the European stock exchange. So the actual value of that stock over there was like probably closer to $100.
That's the perfect reflection, whether you care about share price or not. It's the perfect reflection of what the company was worth at the time. 10 times the value that they were before they released Assassin's Creed. They were swimming in cash. They were so successful. They were massive. But when you reach those peaks, there tends to be a trend that follows. They've been following that trend straight into the ground. As Ubisoft entered into 2018, the cracks in its previously successful formula began to show. While the company had relied on its major franchises to drive growth and maintain its position within the industry, the strategy began to falter. The initial decline of this period can largely be attributed to Ubisoft's over-reliance on its established franchises, a pattern that we've seen with many major publishers.
This is what happened with Blizzard. Like they had a number of games. They haven't released an original franchise since Overwatch, I'm pretty sure, right? Like there isn't anything else that they've done. Like it's just been Diablo 4 and World of Warcraft. Yeah, and also the phone game. Well, that's not new. That's Warcraft Rumble. Like, yeah, it's just a phone game, really. And I think it's a huge issue.
Groundbreaking mechanics and narratives that defined Ubisoft's titles were beginning to feel repetitive, leading to players feeling bored and fatigued with Ubisoft's design. I'll be honest, by the third Assassin's Creed, I had already tapped out because I felt like I saw the writing on the wall. Every time I watched any of the reveals or trailers,
this is the way I feel about WoW. Like what he's explaining right now is exactly the way I feel about WoW. Is that like because I've already played it so much, I know what the new one is going to be like, and I'm like, oh, I've already been there, I've already done that.
And yeah, I've done all this before.
Fucking
This
exactly.
over-reliance on existing franchises resulted in a slew of releases that, while still commercially viable, lacked the innovative spark that once defined the company. Assassin's Creed Odyssey in 2018 was a prime example of this issue. Despite it being a commercial success and receiving positive reviews, it didn't quite reach the heights of previous entries in the series. While it expanded upon RPG elements that were introduced in Assassin's Creed Origins, players and critics alike felt that the formula was becoming stale, with the vast majority of the open world and numerous side activities feeling more like a checklist rather than an engaging experience.
I think this is what's happened with a lot of open world games, is that somebody said that the comparison, like the difference between an open world game and a non-open world game, and it had like a guy and like a monster and a treasure chest, and the open world game were just like, they were just farther apart. It's like, okay, things just take longer to do. Okay. Wow. Amazing, right? I quit open world games, and I think also, like, a big problem is that once you use this formula so many times, like, I'm kind of this way with gacha games now, where, like, I played Star Rail, I had a lot of fun playing Star Rail, but, like, the fact that I can figure out everything that's happening in a gacha game when the whole thing is in Chinese, like, how the fuck, like, I can't read Chinese. How do I know this? Because every single one of them plays the exact same way. And I think that's a huge problem. It's like you have this established formula, and how many times are people going to want this formula? And I'm going to tell you a more contemporary example. Look at the response to Inotria. And Inotria, in a lot of ways, is a good game, right? And, like, despite the type of game it is, there have been a lot of people who have expressed a degree of fatigue with Souls-like games. They feel like we've had too many of these, and they're looking for something new. And I think that's always what happens. And, like, for me, I love Souls-like games. I get it, but I can totally understand. I can see where they're coming from. It's very mid-Souls-like, worse than Lords of the Fallen. My point is that people see a Souls-like, and they're like, oh, okay, it's another one of these. And I think the same thing happened with Ubisoft.
Propagated a shared perception between players and critics of more of the same. Ubisoft games were becoming predictable, drawn out, and boring. Far Cry New Dawn in 2019 suffered from the exact same issues. As a direct sequel to Far Cry 5, it attempted to build on the narrative and setting, but was seen as more of an expansion than a full-fledged new installment. The game was a commercial success to a degree, but it didn't match the sales or the impact of Far Cry 3 or Far Cry 4.
This is something like, this is kind of an abstract comparison, but I can see this happening with certain streamers, where, like, streamers will do certain things to, like, maintain a certain amount of viewer count. And I think that it's an instance where doing the safe option guarantees failure. Where, like, for example, some streamers don't want to only play, like, they only want to play, like, one type of game. And eventually that's going to stop working, and people will get tired of watching you playing that game. Like, there's a lot of WoW players that are like that. And I think it's a huge issue, because if you're not evolving, then you're falling behind. And I think that's true with anything. Like, in any sort of a market, if you're not evolving your product and evolving what you're offering to consumers, other people will, and then consumers will move on.
Narrative was considered weaker, the post-apocalyptic setting, while a new direction for the series, didn't really resonate strongly with the player base. This underwhelming reception was indicative of a larger issue: the lack of fresh ideas and a growing formulaic approach to game design. Another notable release during this period was The Division.
It was about this time that I started hearing a lot of bad things about them too.
2 in 2019. Now, this game was
like
well
the
received.
memes.
It had refined mechanics over the first game. The end game content was really engaging, and it was twice the size, if not larger, than the first game. However, despite its reception, it didn't meet Ubisoft's high sales expectations. The live service model that they had injected into the game arbitrarily, while successful in Rainbow Six Siege, did not effectively translate into The Division 2. This is partly due to market saturation, as other players are more invested in other live service games, but from my perspective as a fan from Division 2, the live service model just didn't work here. It felt generic. In a game where you're finding loot, and that's the gameplay loop, the last thing that you want to do is buy things to wear. You want to stand out for your achievements in the game, not how much you spent on
Hey,
loot
what's
boxes.
good?
Well, that, I mean, like, fuck, man. Like, you could say that with every game. And the thing is, I think that a lot of people are kind of fatigued from, like, every video game being full of cosmetics and shit like this. And I get how like games.
You
have to
good?
make
You can
money
hear me?
and everything, right? I understand, but at the same time, it's like there's a certain degree of fatigue where, like, you just have all these cosmetics and all this bullshit in games. Like, everything is made into being a live service game. Does it really need to be like that? I think that the best example of this is the Suicide Squad game. That's probably the biggest example of a fuck up. But I think Division 2 might be a good example. I just don't know. I don't know enough about it.
This pattern of diminishing returns, poorly implemented monetization, and loss of connection with the players is a common issue for companies that heavily rely on their existing franchises. While sequels and spin-offs can capitalize on established fan bases, they also run the risk of alienating players by offering experiences that feel all too familiar, or injecting things into those experiences that make them, well, just something.
Yeah, I'm reading chats.
Whatsoever.
Yeah.
Ubisoft's reliance on its core franchises like Assassin's Creed, Far Cry, and the Tom Clancy games led to a perception that the company was simply reusing the same templates with minor tweaks and adding monetization.
Yeah, this is when the memes of like the Ubisoft, like if Ubisoft made Dark Souls and it's got like a million menu items and there's like all these pop-ups and it's like check the store and everything, and then the Elden Ring one as well. Yeah, that's it.
Lack of innovation and growing similarities between their titles resulted in players being less excited about their new games, and they began to see Ubisoft games as formulaic in design.
And you see like what I'm talking about how people that are like streamers, it's the same thing, is that like if you just keep doing the exact same thing over and over, you might think that you're being safe, but all you're doing is like safely failing slowly. And I think that's what happens with a lot of people. Like I tell myself, or I've told other people this too. It's like if I'm not looking back at my content from 3 years ago and thinking it's bad, then I'm not winning, right? I'm not getting better.
Oh, man.
Yeah, there's no postponing death. Yeah, exactly.
Sprawling open worlds filled with repetitive tasks rather than unique and engaging experiences. And I think that's the most troubling thing when it comes to Ubisoft. It's their aversion to criticism. Get that away from me. And they're not alone in that, okay?
Well, they haven't
There's
been.
plenty of other studios and journalists that are out there that feel the same way. Don't listen to the gamers, those angry gamers. They don't know anything. And look,
it's actually crazy to me that like any group of like developers have like they've gaslighted themselves into thinking that games journalists speak for gamers. Like I think this is like a huge problem.
Test.
That like publishers and developers are listening to these journalists and these people that are writers.
Can you hear me now?
You're listening to them over your actual audience. You're listening to them. You know who you need to be listening to? The YouTube channel comments. You need to be listening to the reviews from users that are highly upvoted about the game that you released. Those are the people that actually matter. Some person that works at a company and the company has an important name.
Test.
This is
Testing
one
this
person's
microphone.
opinion. They don't represent anybody other than themselves. And I think that what happens a lot is that these companies have like a very distorted view of what players want because they're getting that perspective from people that are not accurately representing the players. And I can offer you guys a very easy example.
Testing.
Do you feel like your needs and your desires as a player are accurately reflected by the way that different games companies cover games? Do you feel like your needs and your desires? Do you think that they're accurately reflected? Right? Exactly. No. And so guess what the problem is when you make decisions based off of that?
Testing.
Everything goes to shit.
get it. Well, 9 times out of 10, players don't know how to voice their criticisms effectively. Oftentimes, they're just being mean when they say things.
There's a big disconnect.
They're still telling you that something's wrong with your games and you need to fix it. But year after year, Ubisoft has completely failed to listen to any criticism, whether that's coming from professional critics or the players. People have been saying for years how formulaic their design is, how scary predictable their games are. I know that
if I can find it.
Test.
Oh, man.
Is this working?
If
Yes.
Ubisoft made Elden Ring. Man. I can't wait, huh? Real exciting. You tell me, man? Yeah, a timeless masterpiece? Yeah, there you go.
I log into an open world Ubisoft game, it's just going to be a checklist simulator. Everybody still remembers when their developers took to Twitter to criticize Elden Ring of all games. for its open world design, its quest design, and its UI.
I
How
forgot.
the fuck do you do that? That's the
Yeah, the UI of Elden Ring. Oh my god. And the thing is that there actually were criticisms with the UI. Like, for example, like key binding things with like your pouch is kind of annoying to do on keyboard. But like none of the people that play the games that are these developers like played the game enough to know that.
best game that we've had. One of the best games that
Yeah.
we've had in the last decade.
One of the best
Why would
games,
you look at a
top 10
game
games
like
of all
that,
time.
look at the success that it
Test,
sees, and say, we
test.
need to internalize some of the things that this game did well, why players liked it, and then reflect that in our games going forward.
That's actually a really good point, is that Star Wars Outlaws came out after Elden Ring. So this is like an open world game.
Testing.
And like you could have
Am I
looked at
getting any
Elden Ring
audio
and
out of
taken
this?
examples and things
Hello?
that Elden Ring did, or for example, like Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild did, and you decided to take none of those examples.
That's how you make better
This is like an
products. You
open
learn
world
from your
game.
competition. Learn from the
Testing.
games that do
And, like,
well.
you could have-
Am I
Instead of
getting any
looking at it,
audio out of
wanting to
this?
criticize it and trying to make excuses why you think that your games are better.
Yeah.
Don't play Assassin's Creed.
All right. How about now? Can you hear me? I think I got it working. Ah, good. Yeah, I do. At least I try to. Can't really say I'm interested in any graphic design or anything. Yeah, that's good to hear.
little bell.
Yeah, I'm reading it.
No mana. No mana. Vanquished.
Shoot,
Shattering chill. What works of wonder? Let us see what the Faradin have in store for me.
Hold them back while I open the gate.
about a week. Did you hear that? About a week.
The tide of war.
That's awesome. I'm a professional graphic designer too.
There are 2 more gates we must open. Continue the assault. Slay them all.
See that? That graphics tablet.
Frozen fate.
There's my XP pen tablet. Share some. Share whatever you want, but hey, did you give me a follow yet?
carry few possessions. I don't have room for that.
If you are the trade, I will tell you. Sands guides you. Young one. Careful story.
Let the tide of war flow. Shattering chill!
The final gate is broken! We must continue our attack!
Noxious!
Eh? Shaman Ra? How is this possible?
The Manaketh will fall by my hand!
Hold them back while I open the gate!
Noxious!
Shaman Ra? How is this possible?
Wrath of a king! The Manaketh will fall by my hand! I shall dethrone you, Sycamore, and leave you to the sands! I tried to seek peace, and the Sycamores disgraced me! Rot in the sand! This time, we choose war!
You receive the death you deserve!
I have seen the fates
Quickly,
of the
quickly!
enemy.
He
and
conjures
it
the very
is
stars
hatred.
against us! This is no natural sandstorm. We must battle sorcery with sorcery. Let us return to the caravan and entreat Zarka's wisdom.
Shaman, we would have. I will tell your tale. Stay in sight.
The Countess, we must move swiftly.
Young one. Hello.
Ah, I am a Sala. Remain a friend. Fight to the last.
I must restrain myself. Death shelters life in an unforgiving land. Relentless assault! A wasteland without end.